All right, and let's move on to our final topic of the day: players that have a risk of being shut down late in the season. So this has actually been something that's been happening a lot throughout the NBA seasons, where some players, some teams, they just don't value what the players can bring, and they opt to go in a different direction, whether it's playoff pushes or lottery pushes. So let's talk about some players that will be shut down or lose opportunity, which will then obviously impact how they can help you in fantasy.
Yeah, for sure. First off, this guy he's playing for the Detroit Pistons, and this is Mason Plumlee. And this season, he's shooting 60%, and he's shooting 66% on the line, 10 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, and a block. Looks pretty good on like a team like Detroit. But then again, got to keep in mind Detroit's current record is 15-36, which means they're not playing very good. And with these performances, and I said, if you're trying to push for a lottery spot, it's not really the best, smartest idea to play him big minutes. Plus, they have a lot of young guys coming right behind him. They're trying to give more minutes to Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, Josh Jackson, and they just traded for Hamidou Diallo, which they got to give him some minutes to. Which, in my opinion, I think at some point they're just gonna tell him, you know what, you've done great for us this year, but we don't really need you anymore. As they're just gonna tank.
Yeah, I love that comparison of Mason Plumlee to those younger guys. I think the NBA is definitely shifting to a young guys league. Like when the teams aren't making a playoff push, they just go towards the young guys and they just give the keys to the young guys instead of a much more competitive leagues back in the day where everyone would still try their best. And the problem with this is that sometimes this leads to blowouts. So that also like skews a lot of fantasy points.
Yeah, I agree with that because I think the league is trending towards either you're going to be one of the top echelon teams fighting for the championship, or you're going to be one of the worst teams fighting for a lottery pick to build your team. So teams middling in the middle is basically useless. So there's no point of doing that. So I think a common theme with all three of our players is going to be either teams that are going to be in the lottery. So yeah. So I guess while I'm at it, I might as well go. And this player that I have in mind is actually injured. Currently out 4 to 6 weeks. So I believe this player is currently rostered in 51% on Yahoo, and even just the last day had been he's been dropped 23% on rosters. So I think this team, which is obviously in the lottery, not fighting for a playoff spot, would rather play it safe and not rush this player back, and will result in shutting him down for the rest of the season. So there's no point of rushing him back and re-injure anything. And like Sherman and Angus said, this team doesn't want to win essentially. So this player is from the Minnesota Timberwolves, Malik Beasley. So he's currently averaging 19 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. So I guess he's been doing well, obviously, and he's been, dropped a lot since his injury, but don't see him coming back. And he has a really good chance of being shut down the rest of the season. And one of his players that will benefit from this is a player that we actually talked about in the previous episode, Jalen Noel. That's probably one of the players that will benefit, along with maybe D'Angelo Russell and even like Ricky Rubio. So keep an eye out again if you haven't picked him up, Jalen Noel.
Yeah, I like the Malik Beasley discussion. He is definitely playing really well, even especially like when Karl Anthony Towns was out. I think Malik Beasley is basically like the best player on the Timberwolves, even though like D'Angelo Russell was playing. I think Malik Beasley was a bit better.
Maybe Anthony Edwards.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that too.
But that's
The
great for
number
Anthony
one,
Edwards now.
yeah, the number one overall pick because it's a big opportunity to showcase himself. I mean,
Mhm.
I think a lot of situations and that we're mentioning are young players trying to showcase themselves and show the coaches and GMs that they're able to contribute and make big plays and be a factor. Even the only thing they're missing is an opportunity, right? So
Yeah. All right. So my player actually is a bit contradicting, but I want to talk about what it means for the other players and their opportunities. So a player that just got injured from the Brooklyn Nets, James Harden. So I'm not saying that James Harden's going to be shut down for the rest of the season because contrasting to the lottery teams, Brooklyn Nets are in a playoffs push. But so the news on his hamstring injury is that he re-aggravated it and then he's going to be reevaluated in 10 days. And this is kind of what happened to Kevin Durant, who injured himself and then he was going to be reevaluated. And then luckily he did come back today, thankfully. But I'm starting to notice that with these trends of being reevaluated, they're just going to play it safe. But the problem is that, especially for us as fantasy playoff owners, or like people that are trying to gear up for the fantasy playoffs, is that we have to know, is this guy going to come back, right? Because maybe they're going to just hold out James Harden until the playoffs, until the NBA playoffs. But by that time, fantasy playoffs is over, right? So some of these players I think will step up, will be, have a good fantasy bump with James Harden out is Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown was one of the players that like did really, really well when both Kyrie and KD were out. He doesn't put up like the huge scoring numbers, but when he gets minutes, he'll just be like a dog on the floor. He'll get you those defensive stats, chase the ball down for boards. Joe Harris, for sure, like more shots up for him. But this is a new player that I don't think we've mentioned before. Chris Chiozza. So he's like a third string guard who wasn't really getting any minutes, but because of these injuries and like them shifting players around, he may be a more of a deeper league guy, but maybe keep an eye on him.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree. Definitely after Brooklyn's experiment with KD and coming off injuries and just resting for like 2 months, they definitely don't want to rush him back, especially after Harden just like re-aggravated his injury. But to his defense, there's like a little human factor in there because he's been playing so well this season. And maybe back of his mind, he feels like if he plays a little more in the regular season, there's a chance for the MVP race. So even it would be a smart thing just to rest him for a little bit, but maybe to him, he might want to come back as soon as possible and just like trying to really make a push for the MVP.
yeah, both cases make a lot more sense, a lot of sense. I think also that the Nets are trying to get in a few games with all three of their superstars all healthy and playing together because I think this whole year they haven't played more than 10 games together.
Yeah.
So in order to develop that chemistry in the playoffs, they need to learn and play more with each other. I think that also boils this issue that Angus was mentioning also it relates to Anthony Davis and LeBron James in LA. Teams that are basically locked up their playoff spot, there's no point of having them back early. But I think how LA will benefit is because they've already played together in previous years. They've won a championship together, so they don't need to worry about the chemistry not being there. So it's different for the Nets, where with Harden, Kyrie, and KD, it's all their first year together. So they might have more of an appetite to play them together rather compared to LA, even though both teams have like basically their playoff spot locked in already.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Comparing, Brooklyn's situation with LA, because for all the Anthony Davis owners out there, they keep saying that he's going to come back, but it's been like it's been like 3 months since he's been
At
injured.
first, they said it was only out for 2 weeks.
Yeah, right. Just like this James Harden or like the Kevin Durant injuries. So, I'm sorry to all the Anthony Davis owners out there. We hope that he'll come back for the fantasy playoffs at least. But with how these players are being shut down until it matters, it's really hard to tell.
And I think Angus made a great point earlier about the timelines that the teams provide now is the timelines where they'll be reevaluated, not when they'll come back or start playing. So they give you a timeline. That timeline is only when they'll be checked up again, not when they're going to be potentially back playing. So it could be extended. So it's a really smart way for the teams to kind of downplay how long the players will be out.
Frustrating, I know, but try to hang on. Hopefully your faith will be rewarded. And if not, maybe don't draft them next year. All right. Well, thank you for joining the conversation this week, Sherman. Hope you had a good time, and I hope you guys had a good time listening. As always, make sure to check out Sherman's at Moners Music. And hopefully we'll have you again soon. Thank you for listening, guys. We'll see you guys next week.